Welcome to the Health Revolution, the show that leads you to a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity through a sea of fads. We reveal the science behind the strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery, the keys to an enriched life. See inspiring interviews with the champions who've conquered life's challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest together. If you want to change the game, it all starts now. Welcome, everybody. You are watching the Health Revolution, and we're excited that you are joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and no matter which way you're tuning into us, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. We want to stay connected to you. Also, at the bottom of your screen, there is a tab for show episode notes. Be mindful of that. There's some powerful and important information about today's episode that you want to be aware of. And so for those of you who are watching for the first time, or those of you who are repeat viewers, today we get a chance to talk about healing from within, the power of functional nutrition. And this might be a term or terms that you've heard in recent times. And obviously the connection between gut health and our hormones and food, all of it's interconnected, but we need to understand more so that we can guide our body on the path where it needs to be, and we can decrease the likeliness of those chronic diseases that we're facing in society today. I'm excited about our guest today. She is coming with all kinds of important information for all of us to learn. First, take a look at this. Meet Christina Stapke, a registered dietitian and expert in integrative and functional medical nutrition therapy. Christina is on a mission to help people heal from the inside out. After struggling with her own digestive issues, chronic fatigue, and hormonal imbalances, Christina turned to functional nutrition to uncover the root causes of her health concerns. Now, as a private practitioner and national speaker, she helps others restore energy, balance hormones, and improve gut health through personalized nutrition strategies. With a background in clinical and hospital settings, Christina blends science with a whole body approach to wellness. Today, we will learn how to fuel our bodies, restore energy, and take control of our health using functional nutrition. Christina Stapke, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Let's get right into it. What led you on this path of integrative and functional nutrition? Why this path for you?
Yeah, so originally it was dealing with my own health issues. So a lot of things started for me when I was even just a kid, and I was dealing with a lot of digestive stuff, but I didn't realize at the time, as a kid, I didn't know that what I was dealing with was abnormal. So it wasn't until things progressed into kind of my later teen years, and I was put on a bunch of medications, like at least 3 or 4 different medications. And again, I just didn't really realize that there was an alternative. And so it actually wasn't until college timeframe. I was my sophomore year of college, and I was going through a really crazy time in my life. And I was just feeling terrible. My energy was really low. My digestion was not good. I was always having to think about what was triggering my symptoms. My hormones were all out of whack. My skin, I just wasn't feeling very well. And I was just kind of managing and living life in a way where I was like, okay, I'm getting through the day kind of thing, and kind of in survival mode. And so sophomore year of college, a pretty crazy thing happened just in my family. And actually one of my family members was admitted to a rehab facility to recover from an addiction. So it was a stressful time for everyone. Something really amazing came out of that when my family member got the support they needed, but I also ended up meeting the staff nutritionist. And at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do just as a career and with my life. And I met this nutritionist. His name was Johnny. It's actually down here in San Diego. And he said, hey, this is what I'm doing for these residents. I'm creating these anti-inflammatory meal plans. And I was like, that's interesting. Why those for? And I mean, this was many years ago at this point. And he said, this is because we have actually seen that there is a lot of inflammation in people's brains that are dealing with addiction and depression. And that was fascinating to me. I had never heard anything like that before. And he said, if you're at all interested in nutrition, definitely go look into functional medicine and nutrition, because it's really helping us understand what the underlying causes are of why someone's feeling the way they're feeling. And it's also helping us personalize recommendations to them. So at that moment, I was like, okay, that makes a ton of sense. Isn't that what conventional doctors and what my current doctors are supposed to be doing, right? Address the underlying causes of things. And after I thought about it for a minute, I'm like, wait, I'm on like 4 different medications and I'm 19 years old. That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't seem like that's addressing the root causes. And so from that point, I got really motivated to go pursue functional nutrition, not only to help myself feel better, but it sounded like a really cool career. So fast forward, went to school to become a dietitian, got the support I needed from functional providers, was able to get off the medications I was on that were really just masking my symptoms, and started to feel so much better. Digestion cleared up, skin, energy, hormones, mood, like it was such a complete shift. And kind of as I had that newfound energy and confidence and just feeling good in my body, I actually started my practice after having worked in a couple of different settings to be able to help women, especially with those types of issues. So that's what got me into it. And after even school, I went on and got 4 more years of training. So yeah, that's basically what got me into it.
I'm fascinated. I do believe, my beliefs are very aligned with what you're thinking, that the power of food has, it has such a strong connection, and we don't realize it. Where are we getting it wrong as a society? Where did the wheels come off in the course of the history of time, and what we're dealing with, and chronic conditions that we're facing today?
Yeah, man, where did we start to get it wrong? I mean, it was when we started to have all of the easy access and availability of processed foods, I would say. So I would say that really started to pick up in like the 60s to 70s, I believe. And so that convenience factor, the ultra processed foods, where again things are just convenient, we're losing a ton of nutrients that way. And now it's just become, a common practice to get stuff that's the most convenient, that's also the most rewarding from our neurochemistry and biology standpoint. For example, fat and sugar and refined carbs, like these are just things that are super rewarding. And by the way, like I think there's always a space for all of those things, right? In moderation, to live in a balanced way. But I would say the easy access of processed foods, I think it's really, and also processed beverages like sugary sodas and different drinks like that. Definitely, again, how easy they're able to get and consume on a regular basis has led to a bunch of chronic diseases. I think there's definitely a lot of other factors in our system from a toxin standpoint, toxins in our food, toxins and basically that come from also how we're raising animals, and also just in our environment. So I would say those are kind of the main factors that are contributing.
You brought up something that really brought my attention. So your symptoms were emerging when you were 19, and I can't help but think back to when I was in college. I did not eat, and I didn't eat very good. And to be honest, I kind of let loose a little too much, a little too often during my early 20s. And how much of this is would you consider to be an epidemic? Do you feel like there are emerging symptoms, and then, like, say, as young adults they dismiss it for the most part, just because there's that exploratory portion in our lives? We're turning 18, and now, so many people are just going into their own, forging their own paths, often in college and all of that. Do you think that things are emerging to where it's becoming concerning, but we're not catching on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's just such a social norm to eat mostly even like convenience foods. And even if we're trying to eat a typically healthy diet, it can still be really challenging to get all the nutrients that we need. And I'll just bring up an example. So, I mean, I work with kids and teens, and I'm seeing a lot of kids with health issues. And it's not that it's just because they're not eating well all the time. Of course, kids tend to gravitate towards, like, again, the really rewarding foods. But I think it really has to do with, in part, our food system as a whole and the different toxins in our system, but also in our environment. So I definitely am seeing that firsthand, that kids need a lot of support.
You talked briefly about addiction and depression when you were going through your studies and the connections that you were understanding about our overall nutritional intake and the impact it has on the body. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's not something that's talked about. Obviously, we know that if somebody's suffering from an addiction, it is a challenge for them to be able to overcome. But then, physiologically speaking, aside from, like, say, a specific addiction, what are some things that you've picked up on that is a commonality of those who are on this challenging journey?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's such a great question. I mean, there's so many different factors. Something that I can speak to personally, because I was on antidepressants and I struggled with depression for a number of years. The one reason that really the reason why like I was able to get off of antidepressants is because I was able to improve my nutrient levels. So, I mean, really, really essential and quite basic, right? Like my B12 and folate and iron were all really low. And so I speak from personal experience, but I see that all the time where just not having enough nutrients can really feed into especially depression. And of course, there's other factors, but that is definitely a really important nutrition foundation. I would say another big one is digestive health. And I would say, again, addiction as well. We can actually see imbalances in the gut and our digestive microbiome contribute to things like cravings. I see this, it's night and day, and this is more food cravings. But there's a lot of research where we've seen there are addiction connections too in the digestive health arena, nutrients, but also genetics. So I would say making sure all of those are optimized, or at least on the genetic side of things, whatever you're working on from a nutrition, supplement, lifestyle standpoint, are personalized to your genetics to kind of make sure those genes are quieted down. Because there is a way so we all have a genetic template, but there is a way to help your genetics work better for you. It's not just you had the genetics and then that's it. So those would be the three main things that are really important for addressing things like addiction and depression.
I've always been curious with what role genetics plays. That we have a blueprint. We have, we have the basis, DNA. How much wiggle room or standard deviation do we have to play with genetics? Is it a huge role? Is it a role? Because, I think of things like, say, if somebody's suffering from like celiac disease, or somebody's suffering from, a type of autoimmune situation where, it does get passed on from one generation to the next, or, how big of a role are you noticing that genetics plays?
Yeah, I would say it plays a really big role. It does depend on the gene that we're talking about. Um, but and I'm trying to come up with a better expression, but the expression is genes load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So you can have the genetic template, but if you don't have the environmental factors to make those genes express, so basically those environmental stressors could be things like stress, toxins, imbalance in the gut, low nutrient levels, then that can definitely make it way more likely that those genes are going to express themselves. But I would say it does depend on the gene that we're talking about. I would say it is almost a requirement of mine from most clients that I work with these days, because it is such an important way to be able to personalize food and supplement recommendations and even lifestyle as we're considering the rest of their labs and their symptoms and kind of how their genes fit into their case as a whole. But I would say it's super important to know. And by the way, there are very secure ways of looking at your genetic data versus there's some companies out there that, there's been some issues with security, but I will say there are still some companies that are very worthwhile, but you do need to actually have proper guidance from a practitioner because it can be kind of overwhelming just getting that data without the guidance.
I think in our, here in the United States, we do struggle with the societal pressures of eating, and maybe the temptations. I think sometimes anywhere between, I think of like marketing tactics to really lure people to buy foods, whether it's like, say, on TV or something that they see visuals, maybe social media, but then also, looking at different ways that we're surrounded. What have you noticed? What has been our biggest struggle? Is it that we're too tempted? Is it that we're developing patterns of maybe addiction to sugars and such, that we just kind of like feed the monster in that way? What are you noticing here in the United States, and then also just worldwide? Are certain countries getting it better than others, or is it like, oh, we're all in the same boat here and this is an issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it's multiple factors. So it is, like I was mentioning earlier, just the really easy availability. You can, for most, depending on where you are, of course, you can go to most like gas stations or local store, and get these foods that are not great for us very, very easily. And so that's one factor. And then there's what we see, the commercials, and it's all around us as far as more food marketing. So it's the easy access to marketing that we're surrounded by all the time, but it's also our biology of us being hardwired to be really rewarded by the things that are in those processed foods. So, the things like fat, sugar, especially, those are kind of the main two that really trigger a lot of our reward systems. So I think it's a combination of things. And I think a good solution to that is just getting back to, what can I imagine living or growing in nature, right? The more that you can get that stuff in your body, the better off you're going to be. And using those other things as treats, very much so on occasion. So indulging in moderation, and ideally keeping them less so. As far as other countries or other examples compared to our country, I would definitely check out the blue zones. There's a lot of, especially smaller communities outside the United States, and I can't list all of them. I know definitely Japan is one of them, but there's several others. The Mediterranean is another, where people are, mainly focusing on foods that we can imagine in nature. But there's also a lot of other things that make them healthy, including community and exercise and sense of purpose and family and all of that. So yeah, that's what I'd say to that.
So for our audience members who don't know what the blue zone is, can you share what that is and what does that represent?
Yeah, so the blue zones represent the populations where there's the highest amount of centenarians, so people that are 100. And so they have been studied because we want to understand what makes people live that long, and live long in a healthy way where they're not just on a ton of medications and barely living. So that's what the blue zones are.
And if I understand correctly, we do have some remote spots in the United States that are considered a blue zone. Is that right? There's right, or there's communities that are notoriously notorious for having that reputation, where the older population is much more vibrant. Maybe that the way that they're moving is very similar to, say, blue zones, where it's a much more of a regional situation. What is the one thing that you discovered when you first became an integrative and functional dietitian that was ever so important? What was the one factor that needed to be part of the framework to change eating, gut health, all of that?
I would say one of the most important factors was actually understanding what my body needed and what other people's bodies needed via validated testing. Because we can do a lot without testing, but ultimately we're making educated guesses based on symptoms and, again, what they're eating and lifestyle and things like that. But I would say, again, having that data is a game changer, because if we can actually get information about your body to see how we can make those specific changes that are exactly personalized to what you need, people feel better so much faster. And so that was something that I noticed when I started applying testing. So many clients, it's typically the first test that we recommend is doing some kind of vitamin and mineral test or doing some kind of digestive test, so we can specifically see what's going on, so we can make those appropriate recommendations that are going to help them fastest.
We're going to dive into the digestive health system and how this pertains to us. First, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay right there. We're coming right back.
So in the calm bag, it has GABA, theanine, and taurine. So theanine, which is B1, which is also in our B complex, but it also helps with the stress response levels. It also helps with the neurological transmitters in our brain. Combined with the GABA, and then you add taurine to it. Taurine is a non-essential amino acid in our body, but it's found in our heart, our brain, and our eyes. So in my personal opinion, it's very essential in our lives. But taurine has a calming effect as well. When I was battling all my AFib issues, I was taking high doses of taurine because that would help with my AFib. It would help with the palpitations I was having. And it also helped with the anxiety of having the palpitations because I knew what was going on, and so taurine helps a lot with that as well. So those three together create such a wonderful concoction that really calms people down.
Introducing Launchpad, the perfect partner to help you launch your dream project to the world. We know that time is of the essence, and we're here to help you make the most of it. With Launchpad, you'll get access to the most advanced digital tools and strategies to take your idea from a mere concept to a fully fledged success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, we have everything you need to make your mark in the world. Launchpad, your ultimate launch partner.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the healing within, the power of functional nutrition. Our guest today, Christina Stapke, she's an integrative and functional dietitian. We're really diving into the power, the connection between gut health and hormones and how our bodies are moving. What can we learn from the options we truly have today to improve our lives? So Christina, before the break, you started to dive into some of the components of what you started to realize as you were stepping into your role as integrative and functional dietitian. So I want to start with the basics for our audience. What is functional nutrition, and why is it so important?
So functional nutrition is essentially understanding what your body needs at a cellular level and having a personalized plan around not only what you're eating, but also what you're taking for supplements, how you're moving your body, sleep strategies, and how to support detoxification. So that's essentially what functional nutrition is in a nutshell.
And what the tie into gut health. These days we're hearing more and more about gut microbiome, gut health. Let's start there. The distinction between gut microbiome and then overall gut health. What is the significance in how our bodies are moving? Whether we're ingesting really good things that are important for us and maybe things that we don't realize aren't as nutritionally packed?
Yeah, so essentially when we think of gut health or gut microbiome, they tend to be used interchangeably, but our gut microbiome basically represents all of the organisms that are basically present from both ends of our digestion, basically from mouth to anus. And all of those bacteria can actually influence how our not only digestion works, but also the rest of our body. So when we think about, okay, what is the relevance and importance of digestive health or gut health, gut microbiome, we can kind of think of it like the soil of the rest of our bodies, right? So if the soil of a plant or soil in our garden, it doesn't have enough nutrients or isn't healthy, it's not going to produce yummy vegetables or whatever things that we're going to eat, or a healthy plant, right? So that's a really good way of thinking about it. And I would say that it's so common, even just to have an imbalance in your gut microbiome, even if you don't have symptoms. So we work with a lot of women, especially with things like hormone imbalance, weight gain, low energy. They're just not feeling good in their bodies, but they actually don't notice digestive symptoms. But once we do some testing, we can actually see they do need a lot of support. And once we rebalance that and work on other foundations in their health and nutrition, then we can actually see all those things improve, weight loss and energy improvement and hormone improvement. So when it comes to what we're eating and how that impacts our digestive health, processed foods and like lots of sugar and lots of refined things, basically things in a bag or a box, are not feeding our good bacteria. And again, those as an occasional treat in a balance, like as part of a diet where you're eating what feels good in your body and eating balanced most of the time, sure, having those things in moderation is fine. I'm a big proponent of balance. But if we're doing those things all the time, again, it's going to be feeding the wrong bacteria. It's going to be shifting that soil, right? And it's going to make that soil less healthy. So if we're thinking about the things that are going to be nourishing that soil, it's the things that we can imagine living and growing in nature, right? So unprocessed, especially good quality organic grass-fed animal proteins, again, versus like super processed other forms of protein, whole grains, nuts and seeds, brightly colored fruits and vegetables, as many of them as possible, especially as many different types of whole unprocessed foods. So we have seen that an increase in variety in your diet can actually increase variety and diversity in your gut, because we see that the more diverse your gut is as far as the different types of organisms that are there, the healthier your gut is and the more resilient your gut is. Yeah.
You know, I've come across this in recent times, that the different varieties of fruits and vegetables is important. And gosh darn it, on my end, because we meal prep and sometimes we just rely on the same. But how often should we be varying it up? How many fruits and vegetables a week should we? How many different fruits and vegetables a week should we be consuming? What's a good number to start with?
Yeah, I would say a really good challenge. So it's not necessarily fruits and vegetables, but a great number to shoot for that I recommend a lot of my clients do, especially when they're in kind of a specific phase of really feeding those good bacteria after we've cleared off the bad bacteria, is trying to get at least 40 to 50 different whole foods a week. So again, what I mean by that, and ideally whole plant foods. So yes, it'd be fruits and vegetables, but again, nuts and seeds, grains, legumes, 40 to 50 a week. It can be kind of a fun challenge. So as you go through your week, just as an exercise, just see about how many different foods you're getting, just as a nice challenge. But I would say that's a really good goal. I will say though, if your gut is out of balance and there's more bad bacteria, eating in that way sometimes can make you feel worse. So experiment, but if you're like, wow, I'm feeling something, maybe negative, sometimes it can be that your digestion is just adjusting to those different fibers. But if you're finding, no, this is happening after a week or two and I'm still feeling uncomfortable, it's really good to focus on that once we've cleared bad bacteria. So that's just something to consider.
Now, I know I want to bring up a slide for our viewing audience, and I want you to take us through some of the different components here your protocols and what you support to really get down to the nitty-gritty of understanding how the gut function is, and what are some things that we do need to know that maybe a vast majority of us don't realize is important to know. Maybe we've never come across this information before. Where do we start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I start by assessing what someone's goals are and what symptoms that they're dealing with. I would say, this particular protocol is designed especially for women dealing with any kind of digestive symptom, or maybe it's not the top priority. They're dealing with lower energy and they're just tired all the time, or maybe they've been gaining some weight, or they're just suspecting they have some hormone irregularities. Honestly, one of the first things that we like to start with is the specialty nutrition testing. So what I mean by that is typically looking into their digestive health. So basically analyzing their gut microbiome tells us about the bacteria and other organisms that are present, so we can specifically know basically what to recommend to rebalance things. So that's really the first place we start. Some people will start with a vitamin and mineral test to see, again, where are they low, so we can know very specifically what foods to recommend and what supplements to recommend that are going to get them feeling better faster. So that's basically the first step in all of this. And then an equally important step is doing a digestion detective consult. So that is basically doing nutritional detective work together to help us understand what are some underlying causes of why you started feeling this way in the first place. The testing is amazing. We want to know how your body got there, though. So we can pull a lot of gold from this type of consult to kind of help us know what's contributing here. And then from those two different assessments, the testing and then doing our history assessment, the consult, then we come up with an initial nutrition and supplement plan. That's based on also what feels doable to you. So we work with so many people that are like, I hope you're not going to make me follow a really strict meal plan, or it's going to be really hard, or I have to track everything I eat. So I want to emphasize that it really is a team approach in figuring out how can this be really easily integrated into your life where it doesn't feel like a complete overhaul of what you're doing. So I want to emphasize that with a personalized nutrition supplement plan. Most of the time people say like, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. So that's that piece. And then throughout the rest of the protocol, basically we have different ways of looking into how to strengthen our digestive function with both what we're eating, but also daily habits that turn on our digestion better, how to reduce gut inflammation and actually figure out what our food triggers are. And that doesn't need to be just digestive. It could be, I think of a couple clients where we did this trial together and they started losing weight because a lot of inflammation was going down. Their energy improved as well. And then we go through like, how can we support healing habits like sleep and personalized movement, stress reduction, reducing toxins. Ultimately, we want to diversify and really challenge those foods that we limited at one time to see, really get in touch with what our body's trying to tell us if we eat a certain food and it responds in a certain way. And then the last couple phases are focusing on a healing mindset. That can be sometimes one of the most important things as we're working on all the physical stuff. And then finally, how do we restore gut balance in the long term? That's focusing on all those foods I talked about, getting diversity, getting healing nutrients in. So that's basically the framework and kind of what that looks like.
So I love this because this is where you get to the root cause, and this is where you begin to unpack a lot of the symptoms that, from what you're saying, you're unpacking a lot of the symptoms and getting to the source of what's going on. And, I'm curious, in the case of those who are, I want to circle back to, you mentioned that sometimes medicine can play a role in our gut health. So in the case of somebody who is battling something serious, let's just say cancer, for example, of any sort, just generically speaking, hypothetically. Mm-hmm. So they're battling cancers and they're taking prescription medication, and they've got some hard, heavy hitting approaches, maybe chemo, maybe radiation, that are part of the protocol that the oncologist is putting them through. What impact, of course, as imagined and as expected, it's throwing the gut health off. what scenario are we looking at, and where can somebody start if they're battling a condition such as cancer and they're trying to overcome it, but then obviously their nutritional elements, all of that is taking a hit? Where to start with that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on specifically what their treatment plan looks like and with their doctor, and also what kinds of side effects they have from that treatment plan, because that would really dictate next steps. So, but I would say, especially based on people we've worked with that have gone through chemotherapy and radiation and a variety of different things, something that I really like to at least look at to have a baseline is looking at their vitamins and minerals, and then potentially looking into digestive health. Again, it really depends on where they are in their treatment plan. But I would say just at baseline, understanding what they're low in and how we can really, really focus on specific foods that are really easy for them to eat, that they can tolerate. Because again, like a lot of the time, people on those kinds of regimens just don't have an appetite or are feeling nauseous. So I would say the testing is great, but really focusing on like what are the things that they do enjoy, just to make sure they're getting enough nutrition, but kind of layering in the testing to know, okay, what foods do we really want to prioritize, and then supplements as appropriate depending on whatever their treatment plan is, especially with medication.
So then you bring up a really good point about supplements. We hear that our soil isn't the greatest right now, and that obviously it's been picked over and over and over, and so the nutrients in our soil is depleted. So so I see that scenario as like a try to find a good enough of a balance where we are eating and consuming what Mother Nature has naturally given us, that we've kind of helped a little bit along the way. But then is there a setback with certain foods that no longer carry the nutrients that they did from once upon a time, from like say time long ago? And then when to introduce supplements, but not rely heavily on supplements, because we're supposed to get our primary source of nutritional intake from Mother Nature.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that, again, it really depends on the person as far as how much they can get from food versus how much they can get from supplements. I think you can never just take supplements and expect to feel better, right? That's not the only solution. Because yes, we still have amazing nutrient-dense foods that can really support the healing process. Now, when it comes to getting therapeutic amounts, and what I mean by therapeutic is amounts high enough from certain foods that are actually going to help our bodies replenish and get those nutrients back up to where we want them to be, so we can have enough of those nutrients for all of the processes that they're needed for. So if we can't get that from food, then that's where supplements come into play. I would say it really, again, it needs to be personalized to the individual as far as, are they absorbing what they're eating from their food? A lot of people, again, this whole conversation about especially digestive health, if our gut's out of balance, we're not going to absorb from our food very well. So a lot of the times supplements can be really helpful to get someone to a better place while they're prioritizing balanced meals and, eating in a way that's healthy and feels good for their body. But kind of over time, the goal is to ideally pare down the supplement regimen so they're getting a lot of what they need from food, but the supplements are filling in the gaps for what they can't get from food.
We're going to continue on this conversation. We got more to cover. First, we're going to take that commercial break. Stay right there. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you. Hi, I'm Adriana, and welcome to Fit Bites. If you're in perimenopause or menopause and struggling with weight gain, ladies, two of the biggest culprits might not be what you expect: sleep deprivation and stress. Now, when sleep is disrupted, your cortisol levels rise, leading to more cravings,
fat storage, especially around the midsection, and hormonal imbalances that make weight loss even harder. And chronic stress, it keeps cortisol elevated, which not only leads to weight gain, but it also impacts digestion, muscle recovery, and energy levels. So what can we do? Start with hormone testing. Understanding your estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol levels give you a clear picture of what's happening in your body. Next, clean up your nutrition. Eliminate as many processed foods and artificial ingredients as possible. Whole, nutrient-dense foods will help regulate blood sugar and reduce inflammation. Prioritize strength training over endless cardio. Muscle is your best tool for revving up metabolism, improving bone health, and balancing hormones. And don't forget stress management. Whether it's deep breathing, meditation, or setting boundaries, lowering stress levels, it's just as important as exercise and nutrition. Menopause is not a roadblock, it's a new phase. And with the right approach and mindset, we can thrive. Take control of your health, focus on what your body needs, and watch the transformation happen. Stay tuned for more Fit Bites with Adriana.
We're spending quality time with our guest today, Christina Stapke. She's an integrative and functional dietitian. It's all about the healing from within, the power of functional nutrition. And we did a deeper dive, of course, before the break on digestion. And we even talked about components of how when we are taking other approaches to address conditions in our body, say something such as serious as cancer, the effects that it does have on the overall body. And Christina, I got to ask you, what role does stress and stress management play in the digestion, how we are digesting food and how our body is responding to that environment?
Yeah, so this is something I talk about with clients all the time because it's one of those things where we can focus on all of the physical, the nutrition, the supplements, the exercise that's going to help the stress response. But my point is you can be doing all the work with nutrition and supplements and everything else, but you can be super stressed and your digestion is probably going to get thrown off. So the reason being, when we're in that stress state, we're in that sympathetic fight or flight freeze mode. So evolutionarily, our bodies still feel like when we're in that stress place, even if it's stress work, relationships, what's happening in the world, like whatever, if we're in that place, our bodies still feel like we're having to run away from a tiger or something, right? So if we are mentally in that place, then our resources are not going to be sent towards our digestive organs. Our resources, so basically our oxygen and blood and nutrients, are going to be basically sent towards our heart and our muscles and our lungs to be able to go run away. So if we're trying to optimize our digestive health and nothing is being sent to our digestive organs, we're not going to have great digestion. So what's super important and what I recommend really for everyone, even if you take a minute before eating, is try to reduce your stress response. And easier said than done, right? But a super easy strategy is just by doubling your exhales. So let's say you inhale for 4, you exhale for 8. Do that for a few rounds and see how your body feels. And it doesn't need to take more than like a minute or 2. So everyone has time for this, but sitting down, looking at your food, taking some deep breaths, what's going to happen is things are going to start to shift and your body's going to say, okay, I'm not trying to run away from a tiger anymore. Let's go send all the resources to our digestive organs, to our intestines and our colon and our esophagus and everything to push and push food down, but also start to absorb and release a lot of the digestive secretions to help you break down your food. So for example, stomach acid and enzymes and bile, we need all of those working together to help us break down our food. So we actually can absorb everything. So that's how important it is. If we're chronically stressed, our digestion is not going to be turned on nearly as much to support our digestive health and be able to not only absorb our nutrients, but keep our gut health in balance.
Obviously you work with a variety of different clients, but I want to highlight, what does your work look like? And if somebody is really struggling with their food and they're either being referred to tap into this and maybe have a look at functional nutrition, but maybe the person who is doing the referring doesn't have the knowledge about it, and they're trying to figure this out. So for the viewer who's watching, who do you work with? Who do you serve? And what is your approach, those first beginning steps that you like to do when you're starting to work with someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially one of the first steps, well, and oftentimes how people get referred to us is even from, doctors, primary care doctors, functional medicine, natural medicine doctors. They usually refer their clients to us to kind of get more into how can we make this practical and make some little nutrition changes that are personalized to them, really easily integrated into their life, but also be able to do some testing to personalize different supplement recommendations if needed, but also tailor, again, how they're moving their body, focusing on sleep, stress, toxic exposure, those kinds of things. So that's generally like why people are referred to us from different doctors. Now, as far as who a good fit for us is and who we love to work with, mainly kind of our ideal client is someone who's dealing with like digestive issues, low energy levels, or they just don't feel good in their bodies. They feel like there's something missing, and they've maybe seen their doctor, usually conventional doctor, and they've been told like there isn't really much that they can find and there's not much that's wrong, and they don't really know what to do outside of maybe recommend a medication to help mask their symptoms. So those are ideal people for us and who we love to support. As far as what it looks like to initially work with us, I do an initial consultation just to see if it's a good fit. But once we do start working together, the first thing we do is that deep dive into someone's history to help us understand what some underlying causes are. Usually around the same time, we like to order testing to help us understand, again, either what's going on in their digestive health, or if more of a priority is nutrients. After I assess them, we'll recommend some testing there so we can kind of personalize some of the recommendations early on in the process.
Do you work with both men and women, or primarily women, and then are you nationwide, worldwide, all of that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we do work with both men and women. I would say the majority women, probably like 80% women. But yeah, we can see people pretty much anywhere in the US. But yeah, we are limited to the United States.
And, I can imagine that you work with women just because as we're entering perimenopause and menopause, we've got the hormonal imbalance and fluctuation going on. And so then the body is thrown off and there's symptoms that are happening. And that one of the main ones presenting is like, say, weight gain, the body is changing. And so then everything continues to be connected. So I could see where there's that sense of urgency. What is the one thing when you talk to a potential client or someone who you're onboarding, and maybe they have some hesitations about not knowing where this could lead? What are some of your favorite best practices or onboarding practices to encourage them that this path can answer more questions for them than maybe previous attempts to get a hold of this?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things is people feel like whatever the plan is going to be really difficult to implement, and they're going to, and most women we work with are moms and they're working, or they have a lot on their plate. So I think I really try to emphasize we are there to support them and whatever they're open to starting with, because even small changes over time can make a significant difference. So that's a big one. And then the second thing I would say is investing in testing is ultimately very likely going to save you time, energy, and money in the long run, because we're eliminating a lot of the guesswork and understanding what your body needs so we can tailor your plan.
That's important. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay put. We've been talking about the healing within, the power of functional nutrition. Our guest today, Christina Stapke, she is an integrative and functional dietitian. We've been doing a deep dive on how the digestive system is impacted by the foods we eat and how the proactive steps that we can take to really turn things around and get our health better. Christina, where can we find you in the virtual space?
Yeah, so best way to find me is at my website, which is candsprucenutrition.com. And I offer free consultations, and there's lots of info on us there. And then another place, we're on social media. So Instagram, you can find us at candsprucenutrition, all spelled out with periods in between. I post a lot of fun like recipes and like easy tweaks that you can make to your day, habits especially for digestive health, but hormone balancing, increasing energy as well. So I like that platform. And then on Facebook, which you'll see the handle right here. So again, C and Spruce Nutrition is our handle. I usually will post different events, like if we're doing workshops, or again, I'll post some of the Instagram stuff, but usually if we're doing online or in-person workshops, I'll post about that there. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. So I'm just Christina Stapke on LinkedIn. And that is a great place. I mean, I'm always wanting to connect with more, not only business owners, but women executives, just anyone in the space that, they're doing things and they want to make an impact in the world. I love to connect, and I always love to connect with other healthcare practitioners who are on the same page as far as like how we like to support people.
Now you have a YouTube channel, is that right?
Yes, and also YouTube channel. So yeah, that's another, CN's First Nutrition is our handle there. I'm putting a lot of like longer form content and interviews with different practitioners. I have some different client stories on there as well. But that's basically what I'm posting on YouTube.
Now, I know you speak worldwide and you've spoken in front of a variety of different audiences. And so what do you have going on for 2025 going forward? Any events or any groups, industries that you are looking to continue to bridge that gap and share this knowledge and just help others understand the power of functional nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am taking my next cohort for the Digestion Detective Solution. So that's the program that I was referencing when we were talking about that framework. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, taking clients for that right now, and I'll be doing that for the next few weeks. That's one. And then I will be doing an in-person workshop in San Diego, all on, again, functional nutrition. So for anyone in San Diego, I'll have that information on my website. And then lastly, I do offer a deep dive masterclass webinar, typically once a quarter, on basically how we can use supplements wisely to support our digestive health and overall health. So those are a few things that are coming up.
Very exciting and very informative. And I'm so glad that we had you here on the show today. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing the knowledge that you have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was awesome.
And we want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors for supporting our show. Thank you so much to Biomed Mobile IV, Dapper Mobile Apps, Launchpad, and Synergize Fitness. And for our viewers, you can find us on the web. Our website is thehealthrevolutiontv.com. There you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can even email us with any show episode ideas you would love for us to cover. On the upper corner of your screen, you'll find our QR code. That's easy for you to grab, so feel free to grab that quickly. And then, of course, you can rely on us to be Tuesdays and Thursdays every single week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We are here with you on E360 TV and all of the distribution handles that come with that. We are continuing to expand. That is all the time that we have for today. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you soon.